You're listening to Turi Ryder's She Said What podcast. I'm Turi, along with Marci Persky. In this installment, have you ever tried applying the new boyfriend or new girlfriend test to your pets? What happens when your partner's most undesirable personality trait shows up in your kid? And a few things we picked up from the writers of Playboy magazine.
The goats are trying to figure out what the snow is. They seem to forget every year.
They're not the smartest things in the world, those goats.
Well, they are. They come when you call them.
Well, they come when you call them if you're holding food,
I know that
right?
there's a lot of people. No, they always come, especially Kevin, just because he wants to chew on my hair or grab my sleeve or just be annoying in general. And then it's my fault because I called him.
Let me just ask you in the end, when these goats toddle off this mortal coil, and you've loved them and you've cared about them, will you get more goats or are you done?
No, I'll get more goats. We haven't had any of these nasty little thistles at all since the goats came, and the dogs used to bring them in all the time. I mean, we had them in our bed.
The goats also climbed into your bed.
That's true too. It's kind of like, pro and con. Like when you're dating a new guy, you don't know if you really like him, and you sit down and you make that list of pros and cons. Like, he farts too much, but he's kind of cute. He holds a door open, but he drives like crap, that kind of stuff. So it's like,
See, you're explaining it in a whole new light now.
and you understand, right?
I'm much better than I did before, to be scarily perfectly honest. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of yard to mow.
Yeah. Well, we have drive-by shootings, and you have stickers in your
Yeah,
bed and no water. So
exactly.
there you go.
So
Okay.
I had an adventure yesterday.
I would like to hear about your adventure yesterday.
Okay. This is going to give everybody a really good illustration of the difference between where you are and where I am,
As if the goats didn't?
as if the goats didn't. I took Juke Perry to Williams, which is about 13 miles. Went to the grocery store, went to my physical therapy for my wrist, went back to get on the highway, and all of a sudden, when I stepped on the gas,
Yeah.
it wouldn't go over 30. And I'm merging onto the highway
Oops.
with a ton of semis and bad weather. It was snowing. So I pulled over to the side of the road, put on my flashers. Then I nursed it somehow for a mile on the side of the highway with my flashers going
Yeah.
20 miles an hour. And every time I stepped on the gas to go faster, it would just lurch instead of, smoothly drive. It was like, if it could make a noise.
That's a good car lurching effect. I think we got the,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah. Good.
I lurched my way to the mechanic and told him what's going on. And then I had to sit and wait to get home,
Mm-hmm.
which either meant Eve come get me or Frankie come from Flagstaff. Eve wasn't answering her phone. This gentleman who was waiting for his truck started up a conversation. And somehow we were talking about animals, our pets. And I said to him, yeah, well, my daughter has two blind cats, a half ocelot cat, and three rabbits in a fifth wheel. And he said to me, this was so bizarre. He said, is one of your cats Tesla? And I said, yes. And he said, Tesla made us cry. He said, she's the talk of the town for a whole month while she was missing. And he and his friends actually went out and looked for her.
Aw.
He said he goes to breakfast at this place every morning. And that's what they talked about. That's what the locals in Williams talked about.
And you run down the locals of Williams all the time. And now look, you're going to have to eat some crow.
Well, he's like the one nice guy, I think.
Oh, no. He has
Yeah.
breakfast with other people.
That's true. And then he called his girlfriend and said, guess who I'm talking to?
For those who don't know, Tesla is the blind cat who wandered out and was missing
For a
for
month.
several weeks. Yes, and signs went up and posts. Where were you posting this?
On like 6 different Facebook sites. She was finally found in the forest 5 miles away from our house.
By some nice off the grid hippies.
Yep.
I
Now, though, I'm worried that this could be Juke Perry's hospice trip to
Juke
the
Perry's
mechanic.
last ride. What is this car?
A blue Nissan Juke.
He's pummeled by hail and doesn't give up. And now transmission failure at the side of the road.
That's what we think it is.
We are in the same automotive situation in a weird way. Like, people go to Vegas and they say they have a gambling system.
Yeah.
I try to have an automotive gambling system where I have this idea of when is the last possible time that I can sell this car before I just have to junk it.
That's the big worry here.
Before we sound like car talk,
Tell me what's new.
the small cutie has a little trouble with time management. So when he landed at the airport, I said, "How did your semester go?" And he said, "Pretty well, I think." And I found out the reason why he said "pretty well, I think" was that he hadn't turned in half his work. And he had accommodations from the professors to get it done. But he and his father share the same everything will only take 10 minutes view of the world.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks later, he got it all done. But it was weird to come downstairs for coffee and not see him hunched over his computer. It's not like he was frittering away his time. In a weird way, he's tracking his father's life almost perfectly. When I met his father, if the spousal unit was cooking, for example, he thought the more spices you put in something, the better it would taste. It didn't matter what it was. He would just kind of run through the spice cabinet and be like, "Oh, I'll put in curry powder. Oh, I'll put in oregano. Oh, here's some basil. Look, some chili powder." And so you would get these things that were just sort of frightening. Not sort of, but actually frightening. And it took a while for me to explain that when you cook, once you put it in, that's the flavor. Leave it alone. And I basically issued a no more than 3 seasonings per recipe requirement if I was going to eat it anyway. Well,
Okay.
this small cutie has a tendency also when he's writing like a 500-word essay to put in the chili powder, the cumin, the basil, the oregano, the rosemary, the onion powder. So by the time he says he's, quote, almost done, the 500-word essay is 2,400 words, and now another 3 days to take it out again. Thank goodness, unlike cooking, you can actually take stuff out. Unfortunately, unlike cooking, there's a grade on this. So it's been really illuminating to see, well, how are you doing? Oh, I just need to do some editing. Well, how long was it supposed to be? 500 words. Well, how many words did you write? 2,700.
That's my forte. I love editing. I edit everything, whether I'm asked to or not.
Well,
even in my mind.
I have offered to edit. If it's an essay, I'm allowed to edit. But to be fair, he's very honest. He said, well, this was a take-home exam, so you can't really look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That was one parental experience where you get to actually watch your child in action and you think, oh my God, this is another manifestation of the worst thing about his or her parent. I'm sure you have 4 kids. I'm sure you've had moments where you've thought to yourself, this is the worst of this child's father right here. Have you not?
Actually, yes. Especially with the one that left me sitting in the mechanic's office for 2.5 hours yesterday when we live 10 minutes away.
Not
but
answering.
I couldn't get her to answer the phone.
What was the excuse? I'm curious.
Well, at first it was, I'm sorry, I didn't feel good and I was sleeping. And then I guess she thought about that one for a while and changed it to, my phone wasn't ringing. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Now it's a technical thing.
That this is her bio dad that we're speaking,
Right.
that she has traits of, not her adoptive dad, who always answers his phone.
Yes. Yes. We want to make that clear. Yes.
Yes.
So, yeah, biology is a powerful and horrible thing. And I've come smack up against it recently with the small cutie. And the other small cutie thing that I'm working to prevent, because I really hope that this is a quality he does not inherit. The spousal unit likes to imagine, because everything will only take 10 minutes, that he can fix anything himself, and it will only take 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So we have a variety of tasks, some important, some not, that are on the list. The math just doesn't quite work out. I don't mind as long as it's not a health and safety issue, but the small cutie informed us when he returned home, did not inform us in the moment, that he had had a bike accident.
Oh.
And had been wearing a helmet, fortunately, and that the bike was not really usable because it had A, B, and C problems with it. And I said, okay, well, take it to the shop because this is a health and safety issue.
Right.
And the spousal unit, you can guess what he said. This is an easy one. You can fix it yourself.
Yeah.
It'll just take 10 minutes.
I'll teach you how.
How did you know? He said that too. So now,
because I know the spousal unit.
Yes. So
very well.
So I'm going to have to sit down with the small cutie and say, I expect to see a charge on the emergency credit card from a bike shop in Canada fixing this, because it is a health and safety issue, and I do not, repeat, not want you fixing it yourself. But it's really weird. I mean, when someone's best quality is also their worst quality, it reminds me of a short story I read many years ago. It was one of those, it was by a science fiction writer named Robert Sheckley. He used to write short stories for Playboy and science fiction. And
you're saying that you used to buy Playboy just for the articles.
Actually, it was the Wilmette Library used book sale. That's where I found this book of short stories. But it was the quintessential, like, you get 3 wishes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the twist to this was that whatever you got, your worst enemy would get double.
Oh.
Yeah. And so the guy says, well, I don't have any worst enemies. I don't have any enemies. And the 3-wish granter, little devilishly, names the guy's best friend. And he says, well, that's my best friend. And the devilishly clever 3-wish granter says, yes, it often works that way. So whatever this guy asks for, his best friend gets double, which is infuriating to him for the first 2 wishes, right?
Right. Because I'm sure he wanted money.
Right, money, and then his best friend gets double, and whatever he wants, a house, and the best friend gets double. So now his 3rd wish is focused entirely on foiling and screwing over his best friend.
His best friend.
Now his worst enemy, right?
Yeah.
And he thinks about it carefully, and he says, I wish for a girlfriend. She should be absolutely gorgeous, smart and interesting, but most importantly, in bed, she should be absolutely the most that I can handle.
Okay.
Very frequently, your best friend, your spousal unit, your most beloved, is also your worst enemy. The guys who wrote for Playboy magazine, they may have known a thing or two.
I used to read it for the cartoons. I liked the cartoons with the old lady who had the boobies hanging down to her knees.
Just kind of a foreshadowing there.
I guess so. Little did I know.
Little did we know. Assuming you've come this far because you enjoy the podcast, may we recommend my book, She Said What? A Life on the Air. It's available at your neighborhood bookstore or on Amazon. And if you're feeling especially generous, please leave the podcast a good review. Thanks.